Hello? Okay, this is working.
Hello.
That was, God, it was so much funnier to see it with a group of people.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen it with a group of people.
How was it for you watching it this time? What came up new or anything, that,
Same thing. It was just very, nostalgic. Yeah. I think I first saw the movie like my freshman year of high school, so it's like very much a formative one for me.
I know this is, can't be a controversial question, but what is your favorite number in that film?
Oh, Here's Where I Stand. Yeah, no,
Here's Where-
yeah. I would say that song definitely told me how to sing basically. Like I would bop that song all the time, still do. I love it.
Yeah, I think, what was the most powerful part about it? I mean,
This is a great song. Tiffany Taylor sings the hell out of it. And yeah, Tiffany Taylor and Sasha Allen from this movie became two of my favorite singers just in general. I know Sasha was in The Voice one year, and was definitely rooting for her that year. And then could be wrong, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure Tiffany follows me on Twitter, so.
Yeah, she became the breakout really, and I remember they did this on Letterman or one of those late night shows, and it's a really amazing performance. It was super nostalgic for me too, obviously, because I said I worked on it, and I was up at that camp when they were starting shooting, and it was I remember reading the script and just being so, this is gonna really be so good for so many kids, you know what I mean? This is just gonna be this movie that gives people an ability to see themselves in the way that they have it,
Yeah, cause I discovered maybe a half a decade after it came out or something like that. What was the initial reception? Cause I don't know, I felt like my own little thing, you know what I mean? I randomly came across it on the IFC channel, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it was a well-received film at the time. I mean, I remember there was a premiere of some sort at New York, the Lincoln Center. I'm not sure whether it was part of New York Film Fest. I don't think it was part of New York Film Fest, so I think it was just a big screening. Mm-hmm. And it was, it was a hit movie. I mean, or sort of a kind of, indie cult.
Still culty,
sort of, yeah. It had its following.
Spicy for the time.
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's still spicy. I think for a teen movie.
There's also this tension that comes kind of now watching it, where you're sort of there's a lot of scenes of adults interacting with the younger generation in ways that are now we are only coming to understand are really toxic and should not kind of happen. And I was
realistic.
Totally realistic, completely.
I think that's what I liked about the film. I'm finally a teen film that feels realistic to me, And
I did have a few questions though about the her washing out the underwear,
Yeah, I don't.
I
never got that part.
I mean, is that homosexual, to do it, or? I just was that's a good idea.
Did she wear them and she just
No, I don't think that was cut out. I think it's supposed to be that she's sort of her, she's sort of her lackey.
Yeah.
And she's become kind of her. I almost when I was watching it, I was thinking about The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant, the Fassbinder movie, where Hanna Schigula plays this long-suffering maid to. I don't know. There was just something. There was this quality about it of she's just enjoying the subservient role, but of course Anna Kendrick is so great in that part.
She's so dark.
She makes the turn completely believable, but yeah, it's.
I would have loved to have seen some gay love,
Mm-hmm.
a couple,
Sure.
Who would have been a good couple on there that we never get a chance to
do you ship anyone in this that isn't?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel the lack of gay love is realistic.
I like that. I love that.
A little bit.
Very good.
Maybe I'm projecting.
I would have thought there would have been some like, I don't know.
I think that's what I like about this film, is that it's realistic. Like, it was just realistic all around.
So that there are sadnesses and there are disappointments is what you, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
like
not
that
sure-
element
I'm
too.
tired of, like, you know.
It doesn't wrap up everything.
Well, I mean, as far as, like, especially teen queer movies and stuff, like, right now, like, Netflix core shit, like, I'm tired of it being, like, you know, there is a love, and, you know, and it's kind of like a normal teen movie, but just, like, wrapped in, like, a queer bow, you know, like, I think of, what's that movie with, that one stray kid? Love Simon, like, you know, like Love Simon, like, you know what I mean, like, I don't want to watch that, I don't really, I remember being in a movie theater watching Love Simon, because, like, everybody wanted to, I'm so glad I didn't pay for my ticket, I was like, I mean, my family paid for a ticket, I think, and when I left, I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't pay for this, because I didn't relate to this at all whatsoever, so, no, I think I like how realistic this film is, and, one of the big things, I think, especially having seen it, like, my freshman year of high school, I think, like, I love that, like, the straight character was evil, and I think that was one of the biggest takeaways from the film for me. It was just like, Shamir, stay away from street boys, and that's what I did.
Vlad.
Yes, Vlad.
It's weird because when I read the script, and I'm a, like, I don't know, never talked about this on this stage, but like I'm a longtime OCD sufferer since I was like a teenager. And so when I read the script, I remember having this moment being like, oh my God, like this is gonna be the first time like this thing that I've been dealing with is like featured in this film, and like it's gonna be like, I remember being like really like kind of almost crying, like reading it, just being like, this is gonna be so amazing. But then when I sort of saw it, and I was just like, there's something about like his performance is the only one that bothers me in the film. Like, I feel like he's not quite as strong as the
No,
other
of
two.
course, and that's also what I love about it. I mean,
You
it's,
like-
again, realistic. The one single straight character is the weakest actor. Like,
He was so perfect.
it's
I mean,
perfect. I
thought
think
it
it's
was-
perfect. I'm glad that he wasn't that good. You know what I mean? Because I think it makes it even, like, it makes him, because I think if he was a good actor, it'd probably make him, like, a little bit more likable.
Mhm.
And it is just, like, even all around, like, you kind of, like, even, like, hate the actor, because it's like, you're not even that good. Like, it's like, no offense, I don't know what he's going to be saying. Like, he could be better, I don't know. But, yeah, that's what I don't know. That's what everything about the film is, that it's just, like, yeah, this was very realistic and very, you know, yeah, I think it's good for, you know, teens to have kind of like this very, like, hyper-realistic, like, version of a teen movie, and this is kind of the only one that I can, like, really reference to. I mean, you know, there's, like, edgy things like Euphoria or whatever, but, like, that's not realistic as well, you know what I mean? Like, it's, like, the other spectrum of, like, a Love Simon, you know?
Whereas like
As much as I love
everything is
Euphoria.
negative, everything is just scary. And,
But also there's, like, a fake level of glam, too.
Right.
You know,
It's
Right.
very glam. So I know I was reading a little bit about this, and Todd Graff was saying that you know, he was sort of working in the system of the film industry for like 10 years before he decided to make this film, and that this film was very much about like who he is as a person. And so as an artist, I know that you have similar experience with working in the industry of music and having them try to change. And so how do you stay faithful to your craft and also like really independent in who you are as an artist without having to change it?
I developed a high tolerance for BS. I think that's just like really it. Yeah, I think you get comfortable with suffering to be comfortable within yourself. You know, you make the trade-off of maybe not being comfortable in the external sense to be comfortable internally. I think that's really important for me because, you know, external things come and go, and we can shield ourselves from external things, but we can't shield ourselves from the internal. So, yeah, it hasn't been easy, and I don't think it ever will be, and that's fine, because I feel very happy and comfortable within / I'm making art that I will be happy about once I'm long gone, because that's the only thing that's gonna last when I'm gone. And like, I think about that all the time, so like, that's always gonna be the most important thing for me.
So you're making music to last, like you're making music, because when I'm creating and making art, I'm always thinking like, who's my audience, you know? And so I wonder, who is your audience? Is it?
I guess me first.
Right.
You know, I guess me first, and anyone who resonates, you know what I mean? And like, that's not to say that like I don't think about, I make my music as accessible as possible without giving too much of like myself, or not giving too much of myself, you know, like kind of like diluting myself. And that's my only two goals, you know, make it for me first, and then make it as accessible as possible without diluting myself, you know.
Okay, that's beautiful, thank you.
I'm wondering, you know, in the film, obviously, like one of the sub-stories of the film is the kid's relationship with the parents. And I know I was listening to an interview with you. You talked about your family situation was very supportive of or more supportive of your art and art making than maybe some other families. Can you talk a
very
little
much
bit
so.
about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like I have a very like complicated relationship with like both of my parents, and you know, luckily none of them having to do with me being an artist and or queer, but mostly because they're both so young. My mom like had me at 19, and my father is 21, and I think that's always been kind of like the hardest thing, and I think, you know, I call it like the Gilmore girl syndrome. That's kind of like what I grew up with, and I think they supported my career when, I mean, I always did art, but it always, like I never thought that I would be here sitting before y'all going on a decade of like being a full-time artist, and I just didn't think that was realistic. And if it wasn't for, you know, my parents kind of like pushing me and not wanting me to kind of like look at art as just a hobby, or, which is like fine too, but like they knew before I knew that it was something that I was supposed to do, even when I didn't know it. And I think a lot of the things that led me to like where I am right now was not because I ever really like fought or was like hungry. I was always like in the right place at the right time. And I recently was just saying this to my friend this past weekend, that like a lot of times I feel like I'm not living life is living me. And so yeah, I think, you know, despite how naive they can be sometimes because of their age, yeah, they always knew that I was supposed to be an artist, and always supported that whenever they could. My father brought me my first keyboard, and my mom brought me my first guitar.
That's amazing. Truly.
Yeah, that support. Who would you like to collaborate with?
You know, I don't know.
About
I just, you know, collaborations is so weird for me. That's why I don't have like many in like my discography. I've worked with a lot of like other musicians for their stuff, like Macy. Well, I signed Macy, I released Macy, but even just like, you know, Rina Sawayama, the collab that I did with her and stuff like that, she reached out to me. So like if an artist that like I like reaches out to me, then I'll do it. But like there's not too many that I can think of, because it's just like, you know, I had not nearly as bad, but as Vlad's, but I had a you know, a couple like meeting your idol situation, and it not been it. So I'm a little jaded. So like back then, when I used to be asked that question, like when I first started my career when I was like 19 and 20, I used to be like, not the Marco. And knowing him, no. So.
Can you talk a little bit about your latest, your book,
Yeah.
But I'm a Painter, and because yeah, I'd love to hear what like inspired you. That's a totally different element. We know you as a musician, and this is a book of why don't you tell a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I released a book back in August called But I'm a Painter. It's a little chapbook, and it's also multimedia, so it's like pictures of the paintings that I've done in my adult life. And yeah, I think painting for me has always kind of been me kind of like exercising, mending my inner child, I guess, because I think before I started doing music and before I taught myself guitar and everything, like my main creative outlet was painting. And I have been painting since as long as I can remember. My mom, again, always encouraged art and used to always buy me like those like big art kits that had like pastels and watercolors and acrylics and everything. And then once I started doing music, I was like, fuck visual art. And kind of like really tried to, fall in the identity of being a musician. And it wasn't until I was like down bad after my first record and having toured nonstop for like a year and wanted to do anything but music, you know what I mean? And painting led to kind of like that solace of just like something else outside of music, which music still does, but sometimes you just need something else, especially when music is your main job now, So the book is about all of my paintings and throughout adulthood from like 21 till about this year.
We'll love to open it up to the audience if people have questions or comments about the film or the work. Yes.
Is there anybody from the cast that's still alive that's in this room right now? Because I'm surprised the word didn't get out on this. Because some of these people are still on Broadway.
Yeah.
And Monday nights is Monday night off on Broadway. I don't understand. These motherfuckers aren't here.
It's true, yeah.
But,
They
I
could
just
be.
want to say that when I saw this film in 2003, I was like in my late 30s, and it kind of blew me away a little bit. And then seeing it now, full circle, I mean, Robin DeJesus, this guy, I mean, I saw this guy like 5 years ago doing Prince, like dead-on Prince concert, and now he's in Tick, Tick, Boom, and he's basically playing the same character. He's the gay guy who's roommates with the sort of like straight, not straight guy.
He's Michael.
Yeah, the Michael character, in Tick, Tick, Boom, he's playing a very similar character, but said he's gone completely corporate. And it's just to see these people's lives, how their lives intertwine with their characters, and it's fucking amazing to me none of these assholes are here.
I mean, this is like a chill thing. We're chilling. But I'm glad. I mean, I love the passion because I know.
You just don't want to speak up, maybe.
Anyone else? In the back? Yeah.
Just curious, the straight character, I just assume he was directed to act kind of dorky, whatever. Do you remember if he was, like the long smiles and things like that?
Say again?
We'll get you a mic.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. The straight character, I assumed, was directed to act dorky or awkward or whatever the word is, like the long smiles and things like that. Was he directed to do that? I'm curious how that works.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't that deep in the mix.
Yeah, I would say that I felt like some choices was made, just like instinctually. Right? I feel like it's a little bit of both, Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think he was directed for long stares into the camera, and
Right.
yeah, especially I think that would make the most sense. Are there any other questions? Oh, there's one here in the front row. Or the third.
Well, hello. I just want to say, first of all, this is one of my boyfriend's favorite movies of all time. He was really mad he could not be here tonight. He's forced me to watch the Anna Kendrick Ladies Who Lunch like multiple times. I've lost count of how many times he's made me watch that with him. And I wish he could see this like fully like unrestored like original film of this, because yeah. But I also am like, with it being like all about theater and stuff, and like I also feel like it's like really fitting that like it's about like people coming together, and we're watching this like right now, and I don't, it's so much about it. I'm like, oh my, this is like so ahead of its time with like the diversity of the casting and like the diversity of the stories and like talking about disability and sexuality and gender and all this stuff, and I'm just like really blown away by all of that. But yeah, I was just in like kind of like, you know, what does it mean? Because it's so much about theater, and I am kind of like, what does it mean for like movies in terms of like bringing people together? Like, is that like different than theater, or is it like the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, there's a lot there to unpack. Are you saying, I guess I'm wondering if there's...
Because I guess, because like with theater, it's like you're there with the performers.
Right.
And so I'm just like, I just find it I just find it kind of interesting to think about what does that mean to be watching like theater in a movie versus like watching theater, like theater.
Right, it's an interesting sort of movie. It's a musical about theater in a movie,
Right.
and we're watching it in this context, and especially in this like pandemic context where we're just starting to come together in theaters and movies and whatnot.
It's a very meta question.
Yes.
Are they aware that we're watching them watch the movie, watching us watching them?
And then I'm watching you while you're watching me.
Yes. What are they thinking about that? No, I think it's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that like I'm not particularly partial to theater stuff, especially like musicals, and I think one of the things that like I guess like made me like the movie is that it kind of like, if you like theater stuff and like musicals and like everything, like you get that fix, but it kind of like breaks the fourth wall a little bit, where it's like not a musical, because I think like my friends who was watching it with asked if like if it was a musical, and then it was like, yes but no, you know what I mean? And I think it's kind of like enough for like everybody, because like, you know, again, it was like very realistic breaking that fourth wall, and like being able to have like the empathetic moments with like those characters without having to be like, okay, here's the musical number, you know what I mean?
Right, it's sort of what it does is so interesting, is it's sort of like musicals use the songs to tell the inner lives and inner desires of the characters, and sometimes in the movies the songs do that, but not always, and sometimes the songs are just kind of great songs, you know, which is also a musical thing, but it's not sort of like that. The structure isn't completely like a musical, but yeah. You never did any theater?
No, I tried. I was saying that the theater was not having it with me. Yeah, I mean that's another friction, because like as much as also I hate Vlad, I also kind of like empathize with Vlad a little bit, because I've always been like, even though I've always been like very explicitly like queer, especially growing up, a lot of like the queer kids, you know, were like, you listen to Poppy, like, you know what I mean? And that was like always like very like frustrating to me as well. But I, you know, it was never without a lack of trying. I tried to try out for like a few things or like whatever, but then I also had a very high pitched voice. So I tried out for like West Side Story, and I used to get made fun of by my choir teacher in high school, and they'd be like, there's like a girl in the Sharks and like everything, and I was just like, fuck this. And like, yeah, I have a lot of like trauma from my high school choir teacher. He hated me. And so yeah, so like I wish, and every time I think I kind of like, you know, as much shit as I do talk about theater kids, I think I kind of I think I'm kind of like a little like envious or like a little venomous because like, you know, I hear other queer people talk about like that family and that unison feeling that they got from theater, and like I'm like, we never got that.
Well, you got something better though.
Sure.
You got a rock star career. Fuck those theater kids. Do we have any other questions? Oh, there's one.
I really appreciate your point about like the realisticness and how like gnarly a lot of the plot lines are in a good way. And I was thinking too while I was watching it about, I was a theater nerd, apologies to all. But we got in trouble for doing a show that they thought was inappropriate. And so there's also something really nice about this film because the kids are doing shows that are like inappropriate for kids. And I think that there's like, it's just, I'm like reflecting on it, I'm always like, oh, that's so queer, right? Like to like want to do it. But like, I guess I'm wondering if you ever had that experience, because it's such a, it's so typical, I think, actually, to have that experience of being told like, oh, this subject matter is inappropriate for you, you're not there yet. But teens really, really do want to go there to like dark adult places, not just like sexy, but like, you know, like political shit, like getting into it about what goes on in unhappy marriages, like all the shit, right? So I guess the question is just, yeah, like, did you have that experience? Because I feel like it is such a common experience.
Yeah, and I think, I think that's probably like another thing about kind of like, you know, the theater, at least, you know, at the very surface high school level, that I was exposed to it as, like, the conformity, you know what I mean? And you know, I kind of remember, I took, like, theater one my freshman year, and, like, that's it, and I was like, okay, that's enough. And I remember, we had, like, an assignment where we kind of had to, like, turn a song into, like, a monologue, and I ended up doing, Nudist to News, by Cat Power, and in that being like a little too, you know, provocative for it, and I was just like, it's just poetic, like, you know, it's like not that deep, and it's like, yeah, so I think that's another thing that kind of like pushed me away a little bit, because I always, you know, wanted to do my own thing artistically, obviously, which very much, you know, is a huge thing, just even about the canon of like my career, you know what I mean? Like I was like literally on a major and was just like, no, I'm gonna do what I want. So yeah, no, I think that's always been within me, and I think it is important to for children to be able to express that, because I think I was, even though that was always within me, I think I was suppressed so much that I think had I not been, I probably wouldn't even have gone down the like crazy journey that I had went to. I would have said no earlier, you know what I mean? So I think it is important to like, you know, have young people have the space to, yeah, be a little bit more provocative and dive into those darker, realistic things. And I think the newer generation, I think they're definitely getting a little bit more space. Not all of it, but a little bit more space, which is really cool to see, because my sister's 16, so yeah, just like conversations that I have with her and like everything, and like seeing all the things that she indulges in and everything, it's just like, damn, you're so cool.
Any other questions or, yeah. That's a good question. What do you think happened to Ellen and Vlad?
I think they got married and had kids.
It's interesting going back to our guest question, or our audience member's question about inappropriateness of theater. I remember it's bringing back my own theater memories. I was definitely a theater kid, and I we did The Man Who Came to Dinner, and I got the cast as the Noel Coward part, which was sort of like the gay character who comes in and is kind of fabulous, and and I was like, the best moment ever. It was this moment where like everyone, I got laughs and I got this like appreciation, and it felt completely like everyone in the audience like saw me, for me, even though I wasn't like out or anything. It was this like really freeing moment, and I think that's kind of what I see in the film, that like that's the power of the theater. Even like Vlad's character being like, I don't have these voices or whatever, I'm like this other person, like that's the excitement of it, and it's also like, it's like on some deeper level, it's like they're playing adult roles that like in training for adult life. And I always get like this thorny kind of thing as like a filmmaker, being like, sometimes like the media we consume, like it tells us teaches us ways to act, and sometimes it teaches us beliefs and expectations and things that are just completely fucked. And it's like learning how to figure that out for yourself that's really important, I think. Sorry, that's my little thing.
Yeah, that's great.
I too discovered this on IFC channel, like very young, like probably like 8th grade, 9th grade, where it would be like the midnight movie and they would show it twice and I would probably watch it both times. It's like the Gospel of Columbus comes on and I'm just like weeping. But like really the most interesting aspect watching the film this time around was just like the aspect of performativity, like for these own children leading their lives, like having to constantly perform. Ellen's weird, like sort of shifty, like sultry power woman, like neo-lib comments about bisexual erasure, like just like there was just like a really interesting like lived-inness about all of these children performing this time around that like totally sold me. And to like be an actor is to like get rid of your OCD and just like turn your life off and like be in the moment. Like, yeah, interesting politics at play from that perspective for me, but yeah.
Very, 2003.
Yeah. But like, I find the like sort of adultness of the things they do very interesting also, because I'm having my own theater flashback memories of like going to state theater competition and seeing like a rival high school put on Flower Mound with like 3 15-year-olds, and it's just like, I've lost my child, my husband doesn't love me, like, all of those sort of ruminations are things that children are already having that we should just let them dive into, I feel like.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then it's also so naive for like us as adults to like not give like younger people more credit, in the sense that like they're well aware of the shit that's going on around them, especially, Gen Z, like, because now, because of the internet and social media, they have a way to voice it. And yeah, and I think that's like so important. And I think a lot of, past generations, even, as young as us, didn't get that. You know what I mean? Like social media kind of like came later, and like we, I feel like millennials like started to like slowly get our voices like later on, where it's just like Gen Z, they popping off at the mouth any time, any given moment, and sometimes it's terrifying. But I'm like, I love that you're all expressing yourselves, but just like, don't get it twisted. I will fight a child. I'm kidding. But who knows?
I feel like every generation has its way of losing its innocence, though. Like I was sneaking downstairs to watch HBO after midnight or whatever. So like on the cable, but so I didn't have internet access. God, it sounds so old, but I I didn't have internet access until I was. But it's just this idea of like trying to protect the innocence of these kids when it's really something they're they're experiencing anyway, that we don't understand because of our lack of anyway. Thank you guys for such a wonderful evening. Great questions, great artists.
Thank you.
One last thing I want to ask is just if you could talk a little bit about what's next? What are you working on? And this, what are you putting your creative energies to right now, this week, this moment?
So as you mentioned in the opening, I just released 2 new singles from my soon-to-be released record. So the first single is called Gage and Dead, and the second one I released last month is called Cisgender. And when I released the second single, we announced that the album will be called Heterosexuality. Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. I made it with a straight boy, and that was really crazy to me because, I didn't, it's kind of like the first, kind of like in a record sense, because, obviously, I've touched on my queerness in songs and music before, but I think this is, the first record where it kind of, does it in a more explicit and, cohesive way. So, it's really funny that this stray kid ended up being kind of, the producer and helping me get that across, but he was great the entire time. And then, as of right now, I'm just always writing. I've been writing a lot of country and Americana stuff, and since the record has been finished, and I got to try those out over at Le Poison Rouge, which is super close last week. So, which I didn't realize how close it was. I was just oh my God, I've just been in the same area the entire time, because I was walking to the train, and I was oh, this is where I'm gonna be next week. So that's just where I am. Yeah.
And where can we get your book, the Chatbook?
Yes, you can get the Chatbook on Bottle Cap Press. It's bottlecap.press. And again, it's there. It's amazing. Independent publisher. Literally, the guy hand makes all of them, and they're all just really cute and amazing. And I don't know how he does it. I think he just inherited a press, and it's just I'm gonna make chapbooks, and I'm you do that.
Well, thank you so much for coming and spending this evening with us. I'm really thrilled. This is a great way to end the series and the season for this year. And I hope, I hope you come back. And we're going to head over to Julius. So please join us. And one more round of applause for the incredible Shamir.